Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's been a hot minute. First of all, thank you so much for everyone that viewed and watched my last video in regards to my 5-year transition update. If you haven't seen that video, please go ahead and view it. It's just a little update on what's been going on in the past 5 years and also how I've been doing with my transition. So today's video is going to be a story time with 4 separate incidents of me getting clocked in public. So for those of you that don't know what clocked means, it's a term used by the trans community and also, I guess, the drag community in regards to getting figured out or getting outed of some sorts. Essentially, it's people finding out you're trans. So in this video, I will be sipping my lovely Strongbow. This is not sponsored, but for the future, Strongbow, please sponsor me because I love your shit. Why am I drinking? Because you know what? A bitch needs to calm her nerves, especially when it comes to story time about getting clocked. So these 4 moments of getting clocked have shaped me in some way or form to be more resilient in my transition and also to have a thicker skin. It's also allowed me to realize certain things about society and myself. Now, just a quick little disclaimer, I am very hyper aware of my passing privilege as a trans woman. I do appear and look cis, and so in turn that does allow me to weave through society in my day-to-day life a little bit easier than it would for someone who doesn't pass. And so the reason why I choose to make a video on this is to spread visibility. I feel like I owe my community representation and being outspoken to really further educate people around me that we are just people, we are just women trying to live our best lives. So for some of you that don't know, I'm actually Filipino. I'm of Filipino descent. I grew up in the Philippines and I moved and immigrated to Canada when I was 16. Now, the reason why I speak pretty perfect English was because I grew up speaking English from the get-go. My family spoke to us in English at home, and eventually when I went to private school and whatnot, I learned Tagalog with everyone else that I got to know. So I understand Tagalog completely. I speak it, I write it. Most of the time people think I'm a different race or I look very racially ambiguous. So Sephora was one of my first makeup jobs. So the first incident I got clocked, I was in Sephora. I was doing a mini makeover on a good friend of mine who is a very handsome Filipino man. Gorgeous guy. I was helping him with concealer, and as you know, actors, models, guys need concealer too, so whatever, it wasn't a big deal. So we were seated at the beauty studio or whatever, and I was touching him up. So in comes a pretty big family of Filipino, I guess, visitors or travelers, or maybe they lived here, I don't know. Immediately I hear in Tagalog the grandmother point out to her family members, and I think there was a mom, a father, and 3 kids, and then the grandmother. And the grandmother just like locks in on me doing makeup on a guy. So she then says to her family, "Hindi yan totoong babae, lalaki yan," which in translation is, "That's not a real girl, that's a guy." And then she goes to comment on my friend in Filipino, in Tagalog, "Ano ba yan, bakla? Puro bakla naman dito." Which in turn translates to, "Oh my god, everyone is gay here. Why is she doing, like, kind of like, why is she doing that?" And so me and my friend just turn our heads in shock and awe. So at that point, you would have expected us to just say something. But I think at that point and that stage in my transition, I just wasn't ready to confront anyone. I was just shell-shocked that people of my kind were dissing me. The dad of the family and I think the daughter and the son start putting bets. They're like, "Ay hindi, totoo yan, babae talaga yan." which in English is like, no, she's a real girl, she's a real girl. And the daughter and the son are like, she's a girl, she's a girl. And I was just mortified. I got really upset after this entire thing. I actually went to the back of our store and I cried a little bit. I cried over strangers who so happened to be people of my race speaking ill of me. I didn't say anything, and now I really wish I did. Now if I heard something go down like that, I will speak up, because 5 years in, my skin is thicker. I really have nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to be scared about. I will correct someone. Back then, I was timid, I was insecure, and I was really catering people's approval as a means for my own approval for myself. All right, so first, I'm just gonna put that story aside and I'm gonna say and tell you the second story, because they all kind of relate. So this was 3 years into my transition, the second story. And I took my then boyfriend, Tom, very handsome Aussie guy, to one of the well-known Filipino dining spots here in Vancouver called Pin Pin. So we're eating, enjoying our food, and to the left of me, further down, I see a mother and her teenage son staring at us. And then I could hear the mother in Tagalog say, "Mukha yang babae, pero lalaki yan. Madaming ganyan sa bansa." She practically said to her teenage son, that is a man who looks like a girl, and there's a lot of those back in the country. So I looked up from my food in awe at this lady and her audacity to teach such hateful things to her teenage son. So her teenage son actually responded to her and said, "Shh, mom, she can hear you. She can hear you." And the mom, with such an angry face, turned to her son. She's like, "I don't care," or something along those lines. So at that point, I tell my boyfriend, because he doesn't understand Tagalog. So I tell him, and he just is in awe as well. And I'm just like, "I'm so upset. Let's just finish our food and leave." And he wanted to confront them, and I said, "No, it's fine." And eventually, we kind of, out of frustration and anger, we just like said out loud, "How dare them, like fuck them, da da da," like whatever. It was kind of satisfying. Anyways, why do I share this story? It kind of relates to my first story in regards to, you know, these Filipino families, and I guess it's a generational gap too, but I'm assuming it's because the Philippines is very religious or very old school and old-fashioned. But that's beside the fact. It's not even about them being Filipino, it's about them not having an open mind. And what shocked me the most was it was the parents, or in the first story, the grandparents that were speaking ill of me. And it was kind of the younger generation, the kids, that were speaking out against them. I think it's important to note that the future is the younger generation. People will claim and call them out for being flakes, for being overly PC, or, you know, politically correct. But these kids are the future. They're the ones that's going to change society altogether. And they're already changing that, you know, and it's because they're much more educated. They're much more open, and there's more conversation for their generation as opposed to these older ones who are still locked in their old mindset. So if you ever encounter a situation like this in your future, in your transition, I hope you don't choke up like I did. I hope you take it with a grain of salt and become resilient and keep moving forward. It's just annoying when people try to talk under their breath or try to talk in different languages, not realize that you understand it. That's also kind of rude. But getting clocked is getting clocked. You have to pick yourself up and keep moving on. So that's kind of what I did, and it's made me stronger. Of course, I will always remember those two incidents. But it's just a funny story that, you know, me being Filipino and Filipinos being the nicest people on the earth, these two incidents happened with them being so malicious and just mean altogether. So be aware of your surroundings, but That's the least you can do, right? I need a drink for this one because this one's a little bit cuckoo. So my next story is about the first time I ever got clocked as trans, and it just so happened to involve a guy and taking him home from the club. So this was my first New Year's Eve party as a trans woman. I was dressed to the nines, decked out to the nines. I had hair extensions. I thought I looked cute. I thought I looked passable. This was when I still had blonde hair. And we went to this kind of like a warehouse party where there was like 7 rooms and 7 DJs in every, there was like a DJ in every room. Super cool. It was a very mixed crowd because it was like a New Year's party. There were a lot of handsome straight guys and like a queer crowd. So it was like a hybrid of everything. And I thought I was in a safe space. I really did think I was in a safe space. Eventually, at some point in the night, a group of guys saw me and I was walking through one of the hallways, and lo and behold, one of them comes up to me as I walked past them and was just like, whoa, what the hell? And poured his entire drink all over my makeup, all over my face, all over my hair. And I was just shocked. I was just like, what the fuck? And automatically I was just like, this guy clocked me. He saw that I was, you know, trans, and just poured his drink all over me. And I was just like so upset. So I ran to the bathroom, took out my extensions because at that point they were wet. They were getting everywhere. I fixed myself up, brushed my hair out. Whatever, it is what it is. I'm just gonna turn this bad situation into something positive. This is New Year's. I'm ringing it with my friends and this like sick party, but hopefully I never run into these guys again, and you know, whatever. So I go back out, I go dancing, I get drunker, things get wild, things get late, and eventually I ended up dancing with a very handsome, tall guy. So I was dancing with this guy. He didn't leave my side. At that point, I had no extensions in. I just thought I kind of just owned looking the way I did at that point. I didn't even think about like being passable. I didn't even think about my appearance. At that point, I'm like, I'm just gonna fucking have fun. You know, I was drunk, I was having fun. So when this guy danced with me for like 2-3 hours, I was like, okay, cool, this is awesome. Like, one thing led to another. We ended up like making out. Things got hot and heavy, and he invited me back to his place. So I said yes. So awesome. We go back to his place. Things got really flirty, and eventually we kind of started hooking up. We started undressing, and I undressed, and he freaked the hell out. So at that point, I'm like, I thought you knew. I thought you had an idea. He was like, I have no clue. Like, what is going on right now? And I was shell-shocked. I was shell-shocked. I was afraid for my life. I didn't know what to do. I was afraid. I was afraid of him retaliating. Eventually he calmed down and he kicked me out and just told me to get the fuck out. So I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I let that happen. I just assumed that you had known. I just assumed at that rate that I looked very clockable. And that experience, that entire experience made me realize when I started passing and when I started to realize I needed to say something whenever I had to meet someone or whenever I felt something was leading on to something else. It's no trans person's prerogative to try and trick someone. We don't want to trick anyone. We never do. Like, it's our safety that's on the line. So that incident years ago really clicked in my head. Also to think about safety first, to assess situations much better. It sucks having to come out to strangers. It sucks having to come out to people. When it comes down to our safety, that's more important. Playing stealth, playing the game of stealth is not something you want to be doing, or not something that is safe at all, because in today's climate and society, people will retaliate. Men will retaliate. Fragile men will do things to harm us, and they can get away with it. For us girls, I think it's just safest to be upfront. If we feel that a situation is leading to something more than conversation, we must say something. I wanted to bring these situations up so that you trans girls that are watching me could learn a thing or two, or could apply some of the things I learned in these situations. Not to get kicked down by getting clocked, not to allow people's perception or view on your physicality to kick you down. Appearance isn't everything. That's easy for me to say because I can weave through society being undetected, but I just want to be visible and out for the rest of my community so that I can help us progress in society. We're not trying to be bio whatsoever. We're just wanting to exist and wanting to exist the best way we can. Anyways guys, that was a super chatty video. 4 stories for you there. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm just gonna go continue sipping my Strongbow. I hope you learned a thing or two with my encounters with getting clocked. So please be kind to your neighbor, be kind to the trans people in the world. We're just all here trying to make it, you know. If you'd like to subscribe for more content, please do. If you have questions, please leave them in the comment box.